Hi, I'm Rick Richardson. Welcome back to the Salary Step Up series. We're on step 12, and in this step we're going to talk about rapport. Now, let me give you the definition of rapport. It's not a word that we necessarily use a lot in day-to-day conversation. Rapport is a close, harmonious relationship. So it's that positive give and take type of relationship where there's an affinity between the two parties, where you've built and you have a positive communication with the other party. So how do we build rapport, and what are the do's and don'ts? Well, let me dive right in with the don'ts of the rapport. When you are doing things that are counterproductive, if you're a problem maker as opposed to solving problems and helping people get along, if you're always antagonizing, that's not conducive to building rapport. Another thing that's not conducive to building rapport is to have these negative personality traits all year long and then think, oh, I'm going in for a pay raise or I'm going in for my evaluation, so I better straighten up my act and be positive and friendly to everybody. That's going to have the opposite effect. People are going to realize that you're two-faced and that you know better and only choose to be better at those times. So you want to make sure that what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, or on a, everybody has their off days, and I'm not saying that you want to be a suck-up, because that's another don't. If you're going to be a suck-up to the boss and just be a yes man or woman, then your boss is going to see through that. Now, they might have a huge ego, and it's okay to stroke an ego. That's not a problem. It's that you do it with integrity. You don't compromise on who you are or your beliefs or your conduct, that you can interact with your boss on a positive level and compliment them as long as it's valid. Don't just sit there and look for something to compliment them on every day, and you're just reaching, and then they finally say, oh my gosh, this person all they're trying to do is just suck up and pay me compliments. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for, hey boss, I saw how you handled that tough situation. I got to tell you, I really admire that. That comment once in a while is going to go a long way to building that positive relationship that you want with your boss. Another thing that you want to do with your rapport building is to see what they have in their office, around them, their vehicle. If you happen to ever go to their home, what they discuss, what they talk about, if they have family and how they talk about their family. Those things are going to give you an insight as to what's important to them and what you can do to increase that communication and familiarity, positive familiarity with your boss. Think of it this way: if you go into your boss's office and there's a bunch of bowling trophies and you love bowling, well, that's pretty obvious. You can have a discussion about bowling and maybe even get on the same league. There you go. So that's an obvious one. Some things are not as obvious. Some people don't have a lot of things around them, or their work environment's not such that they can have a lot of things around them. If someone has a particular religious belief, or they have some small little things like a religious belief, they might wear a religious item on their necklace or something, a cross or a Star of David or what have you. That's going to tell you something about that person. They obviously that's important to them, and they have that out there. The next part of that would be to look at what their photos are that are on their desk, and to see what is in those photos. It may be a photo of them and their kids on vacation, but what is the background? Where was the vacation? What was the activity around? If it's fishing, then ask them a little bit about fishing. Maybe it was a one-time thing, it's not a big deal. Maybe it's something that they just love to do all the time. If you can find those things and build on that, you can have those conversations. You want to have conversations that are not always revolved around work. If everything you talk about is work related, then they don't see you as multidimensional. Ideally, we want your boss to view you as someone with all these different dimensions. We want them to see you as a positive, hardworking, committed employee. but we also want to have them see you as someone who's interesting, who has a life outside of work, who does more than just work and as like a drone or just a worker bee. You know, you want them to see you as someone who has multiple interests and can interact on multiple levels. By doing that, emotionally your boss will make a connection, and then when you have those connections, when you go to ask for that pay raise or you ask for assistance in any of your aspects of your interactions with your boss, they will feel, not think about it, but they'll feel more apt to give you what you're asking for, because there will be a communication that's nonverbal. Those nonverbal implied relationships are what we're trying to build with the rapport. Another thing I want to point out is that rapport is best done in small doses. You don't want to jump right in and be real aggressive. What's going to come across that way is you're going to be seen as too needy. You're going to be that lost puppy type of thing. It's uncomfortable, and if they perceive you as being too aggressive, they'll cut off contact with you. If they perceive that why you're doing this is to manipulate them, they will cut off communication with you, hold you at a distance, and they won't trust you. The best way to avoid those issues is to do it in small doses. Gathering the information through observing what they have around their desk, or what they're saying, and the different things that you can glean from what they have around them, and then asking some questions, pointing out some things, you know, in the sense of, I've noticed that you have this, or I've noticed that you have an interest in that, and building on those little things, having that communication, but doing it very subtle, very slowly. You don't want to just walk into their office and expect that you're going to sit down and talk to them for an hour about their favorite hobbies. You want to make very subtle, slow, but continuous movement in this direction. An important part of rapport building is to teach your boss how to treat you, how to interact with you. The best way to do that is to be self-confident and respectful. And if you put that out to them, that should be reflected back to you. If you have a difficult boss, if you have someone who is not a pleasant person to be around, it's okay to very subtly and at times point out to them that you don't appreciate the way that they talk to you in front of the group, or that please don't talk down to me. You want to do those things in private, but what I've found is when I've had difficult relationships with people and I've called them out on those things, I've found that they understand, and they then will treat me different than the person right next to me, who may have the exact same relationship with them, except for that I've gone to the extent of indicating to them that I did not appreciate the way I was being talked to or treated. And if you teach your boss how to treat you, how to interact with you, you're going to find it's a whole lot easier to have these other rapport building aspects start to fire off with them. If they're always talking down to you and seeing you as a subordinate that needs to keep a distance, and you can push through that, and sometimes that's a little bit difficult, that if they've got a veneer up, this crusty layer between you and them, it might take a little bit to push through that. But if you can do that, then the rest of the rapport building will be much easier. So I just touched on it a little bit, and I want to make it really clear that respect is the biggest component of building rapport. If you can show the respect to the other party and then demand respect back, but do it subtly and encourage it, and if you can build that mutual respect, the harmony that we're talking about that happens in a good positive rapport is the natural outcropping of that respect. It's the best way to build rapport is through mutual respect, but you're going to have to be the one to push that forward, find those common threads, and build on that common foundation. If you are not finding those common threads at first, look a little deeper and find that you may have a different religious belief than your boss. And yet in those beliefs, you'll find that there is the commitment to family and the commitment to respect and honesty and these common values. Build on those. You don't have to have an identical belief structure with someone to build the respect that is necessary for a good, positive relationship, a very harmonious relationship. Okay, so take the parts of this step that obviously interact with other steps in this process and start to see how you can build this rapport. You want to start early with this and move through the remaining steps, but start immediately with building rapport. As you move through this process, you will find that when you get to the presentation, if you've done the work with the rapport building in advance, it's much easier for your boss to say yes. So we want to start right away and do it subtly and consistently and with a determined focus of you want them to be your strongest and best ally in getting you a pay raise. All right. Thank you very much for listening to this step. We're going to move on to the next one. Keep your notes from this, and if you have any questions, please leave us a comment or try to communicate with us through an email would be great. I'm Rick Richardson. This is the Salary Step Up series. Thanks for watching.